Cool. For starters, I always like going over win conditions whenever, at the very, very start of the game. Because this kind of dictates where your team should be focusing, where you should be rotating to, which lane should be getting jungle pressure, and stuff like that. So whenever you look at this team comp that we have over here, um, Cho'Gath is has pretty good sustain as long as he's not in a heavy harass lane. Like a Jace could potentially poke down the Cho'Gath, but a Gangplank's probably not going to be able to force the Cho'Gath out of lane. So Cho'Gath is going to do pretty good early game by himself. Um, and that's good because this is going to set you up with a very nice front line between the Trundle and the Cho'Gath. And your back line has pretty pretty good mid game. Xayah is a really strong carry once she gets her Essence Reaver. That's got a lot of crowd control, and Twisted Fate's got really good play setup. Um, so with this team comp, I would be saying your focus early should be on mid lane. If you can get Twisted Fate a little bit ahead, that will be able to snowball your lead into bottom lane, and it'll also be able to snowball your lead into top lane because of the Twisted Fate ultimate. Aside from that, the enemy team comp is focused. It's got a lot of different threats, and since they took Ignite bottom, they're probably looking to have bottom a kill lane. Uh, Gangplank, I don't know for certain if you'd get a kill easily going top lane, especially if it turned into a 2v2. So I think that my focus this game would be between mid and bot. And if you could do something on your first clear to help top lane, that would be the only time I would really be looking to go top lane for an obvious gank. Uh, and then I'd be looking for mid and bot. So what this means is I'd probably be doing a standard clear, and then I'd be looking for a level 3 gank, standard stuff here, and also mid lane. You can choose either one dependent on how it's going. So that's what the jungler should be thinking. And for the lanes, let's talk about, okay, Cho'Gath here. You want to make sure you're able to stay on the minion wave, and you want to make sure that, because that's going to let you use your passive and sustain. You're probably going to want to, I'm not sure if you're going to really want to push too early. Rammus has a good clear, but it's not super oppressive if you plan on having early gank up there. Mid lane, I would be playing safe for level 2. Level 1, I'd be playing a bit aggro. Level 2, I'd be playing safe. And then level 3, I'd be hoping that my jungler would be ganking for me. That's because the LeBlanc, once she gets her second ability, of course she has the ability to pop her Q that second time. Bottom lane, I would be looking to go for a lot of harass early. Because the Nautilus does not have range. If you watch his cooldown, you will be able to punish this lane very heavily. So watch for his hook, and then every time his hook is down, that's whenever you can start playing up. Janna Shield and Xayah W, that will let you chase down free harass while, not receiving anything in return, because Janna Shield. So bottom lane should be playing aggressive early. Mid lane should be playing aggressive and then safe. So like your level 1 is your spike. Then level like the Twisted Fate, you're going to want to constantly be pushing in the LeBlanc with your just superior wave clear. If you don't push in the LeBlanc, you're giving her the opportunity to roam, and you don't want to do that. So okay, yeah, that's enough about talking about early strategies. For your team comp, I think it's pretty good. I think that you have a variety of threats. The Janna this game, I know Janna's really strong right now, and they don't have a lot of dive, so she's probably going to be staying alive the entire game. And that if you're dying as Janna this game, you really need to be looking at your positioning a little more. They don't have anything really to get to you, because you can always be standing behind your carry, and you can ult away the LeBlanc, and So basically that means the Xayah should be alive this entire fight, and the Twisted Fate should also be alive, because if Janna's alive, that's the case. And you got a great front end line with reasonable engage. Pretty good fight. or a pretty good team comp. I saw that. I really like how you're watching over here. You got a ward in this bush, and you got the Twisted Fate watching the red buff. That's this is something that a lot of solo queue teams do not do, and it's awful habit to not do this. You want to make sure you watch jungle entrances. Watching the red buff over here is a bit, I'm gonna say extra. It's not super necessary. I would be just focusing my defense on the blue buff. And the reason is because the Rammus is not a huge counter jungler. Uh, it's just going off of what their picks are. It's a smart move to be defending the jungle. It's just less likely for them to do anything because of their pick. Okay, so it just in a little mechanical like tangent here. If you harass her with the red card, do you see this amount of damage level 1 that you have and she has? This is from minion aggro. And what you could be doing to punish the LeBlanc early game, she doesn't have wave clear. So you need to be thinking about how you can punish her by just clearing this in. Clearing this in does a lot more than what you think, because clearing this in lets you set up for vision. So I know you warded red earlier, right? But what if you didn't ward red here, and instead you pushed this in, and then you went and warded the blue? So you are playing against as if they're going to invade you, but you're in a very strong laning position level 1 to set up for something for your team to know where the Rammus is. This is not going to find out where the Rammus is. This is going to find out if he goes here. Warding over here is going to tell you when the Rammus is here. That doesn't mean you're going to have to do this every game. This is very matchup specific, and you can punish this with being Twisted Fate with his early wave clear. I know you wanted to try and zone her off, but just walking at her, if you wanted to look at what she just did, look at how she respects your card. You're pulling this out, and you're already zoning her off. You don't need to follow that in, because you take just as much damage. Um, I think that you're giving too much respect here. As I said, your lane should be the one that has the priority with harassing. If you have a ward left over, which you do, ward these bushes and just play towards the top side. If they do engage with the Nautilus, you can probably turn all of your damage onto the Caitlyn and still come out of this trade even. Instead, you give up level 2 and the early pressure. So you shouldn't be giving up that much pressure early. And you see this ward over here? You see this counter jungling that he's doing? As Twisted Fate, you could have set up for this. The Trundle was doing all of this by himself, but you could have pushed this. See, you did push this in, but... Huh. Okay. That was a pretty good smite by you just to stay alive. I did like that. But let's go back and look at this. So whenever your team is counter jungling, right, you have this wave already pushed in. If you have this wave pushed in and your team is creating pressure over here, you need to be moving over here. You don't let him just do this by himself. He does not have to do this by himself. You are trying to let him sneak this, but in a standard clear, the Rammus is going to be up here. So what you do this game is you're actually walking away. And the Cho'Gath up here, you're also pushed in. So this is a very good time for the Trundle to be looking for this, but it's a good time because your lanes are supposed to be able to help. So if you're in comms together and your Trundle or your jungler is doing this, you need to be respecting it and responding to it earlier. He has no reason to be sneaking this. You guys can just straight up take this in the open, because if the team walks over here, the blue team walks over here, they're going to lose that wave that you had just pushed in over here, and they're going to lose this also pushed in over here. Your team has the priority to go down, but for some reason, blue team is the one who gets here first. See? In every lane, blue team gets here first. That should not happen. And there was no reason for that to end up like this trade. You guys should have, at worst, gotten 2 kills for 1 kill. At worst. And that's because you're not responding. Whenever you're creating this pressure by pushing it in, if you are not doing anything in that window of time you create, you are essentially going AFK. So whenever you push a wave in like that, you should be thinking about what you can do to help your team. Okay, if your way of helping your team is harassing the LeBlanc under the tower, you better make sure that you know where the Rammus is, because they're just going to gank you. And if you knew where the Rammus was going to be, which you did, you knew he was going to be clearing to his blue, you need to be working with your team and coming over here. Your early was great pushing in. That's exactly what should have happened in this lane. But you needed to be more responsive to what your team was doing and setting up proactive plays. Since you were so responsive this game, you ended up going 2 for 2 when you should have been the first one there. Bottom lane is doing okay, even though I feel like you guys should be winning this lane. All right. Nice, Trundle. That's exactly where you want to be. But you're waiting here a little too long. So I do like the idea of you ganking bottom, but sitting and doing this, it would be just as easy to be doing your Krug over here. Or not Krug, Gromp. If you were just waiting, which is what you were doing, go and do your Gromp. Also, this wave is in a pretty damn good spot to be ganking. It's a very good time to be looking for this. Um, you're you're in the exact right spot right now. Doing this is also a fine use of your time, but you should have been doing this instead of just waiting. All right, you catch the Rammus out. So you see the Rammus over here. You know that he has two options to go bottom or go mid. And if you look at this lane, he's probably going to be helping mid soon. I think that since you just set up the vision here and you know where the Rammus is, I would be walking over here as Trundle, and as Twisted Fate, I would be baiting for this. You can turn onto this. I think you did not use Flash earlier. Did you not use Flash? Yeah, you still have Flash and Cleanse. You have a ton of turning potential on this. See, this is exactly what he was looking up. And there he is. So it's really obvious to whenever you're looking at the map what people are going to be doing. You know he's going to be looking for that gank. And since you knew he was going to be looking for that gank, there was no reason for you to blow Flash here because he should have just backed off. Trundle, honestly, you should have been looking to go middle and respond to that because that would have been a very easy turn for you guys. Instead, you went and did your Grump, and now you're wandering. Okay. And now you're looking for that counter gank. And now it's too late. Yeah, but okay, great. This is actually a really good example. Do you see how much you just kicked his ass? That's what this lane is. See? That's what this lane is. Now, why are you letting them have all of this pressure and pushing you in when you can do that? Excellent. And since you knew the Rammus was topside, that was pretty good. You see the LeBlanc coming down, you leave. You leave. Don't stay for this. Alright. Okay, staying for this is really risky. You have no mana. Twist of Fate walking down? No? Okay, Twisted Fate. Right here, again, you've created pressure and you're not doing anything with it. You need to be looking to be going down bottom so that way at least these guys can recall. If you're thinking that, oh, you are creating pressure over here, great. You had the Rammus respond. But you know what? She's creating more pressure down here because your team doesn't have any ability to stay here. Really, they don't. And because of that, you were able to do Dragon. Alright. Yeah, I'd be looking up for this too. This is a pretty good idea. Let's go back and look at that. I wasn't watching. Again, do you see this damage? You guys fuck them up. Mm, mechanically, that could have been a bit better. But now your positioning is pretty good going over there. That was a great recall with your feathers. And this is a good idea to be pushing it in. So, things that I've noticed so far. Uh, the Trundle waits around a lot, waiting to try and set up ganks, waiting for buffs to spawn. This means you need to be planning your route better, and you need to also be respecting where expecting rather, where the Rammus is going to be so you can respond sooner. Instead, you ended up waiting in these brush. You waited in these brush, you waited for your buff to spawn, and you waited over here. You do not want to be waiting around as a jungler. The only time I would ever wait around is on a repeat gank top lane when you wait in these bushes for them to teleport to tower and then kill them again. That's the only time I would suggest waiting. Otherwise, if you don't get anything, which you didn't get anything here, and yeah, you secured your blue buff, but like you could have done that anyways, but also gotten a camp, means you're falling behind. Bottom lane, there is not enough aggression here for a lane matchup you should be winning. Um, I know that you guys scale pretty well, but you saw how well you were able to just punish the simplest of plays. He hooked the Janna, and you guys, Nautilus hooked the Janna, and you guys turned it on them. And like, I think you took away like 80% of his health. That should be this lane. That should be this entire lane. Top lane, you have been kind of like screwed over because that early play where the Gangplank got a couple kills, made it a little bit harder for you. Getting pretty good CS still and scaling still, so this is fine. Twisted Fate, you do not do anything with the pressure you create. You had a really good ult down here that one time, but you've ulted twice so far. Your first ult, you just ported mid lane, and But yeah, so your second ult was good. But the main problem that I have with you is not responding to this early enough. Mechanically, you also did that thing where you attacked the LeBlanc when you didn't need to. Your level 1 doesn't do too much. It just means you should have wave control. Bottom lane, you need to be respecting the traps more. You also walk straight into the Caitlyn. I think that that was okay to be chasing the Caitlyn, since you had a lot of health. I probably would have wanted to turn on the Nautilus if it was just me, and hoped that the Twisted Fate would have gotten the kill by himself. But you securing that is still totally fine. As for pink wards, this is a really nice one, but this is also the only one you had up until here. This is also a really nice one. So you guys have two pink wards on the map. That's a great thing to be thinking about. Actually, let's look at that. Yeah, that was really close. Um, so you're not respecting cooldowns. I know you went in to get that CS, but your build, you have some health and some magic resist. Okay, actually, your build is fine. You're doing a really good job with that build. That is exactly what you want to be doing against this lane. Exactly what you want to be doing. Um, but you're not respecting her cooldowns. You could have just waited for yours back here, but instead you walked up. And this whole thing over here, this play happens because you had to recall. That's why the LeBlanc was able to respond to this. That's why they were able to invade over here. You do not ever want to use the Xayah ult for damage. Never, 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 never. You only use it to get your root off. Think of it as a spell shield and if they're chasing you, root. If you use it for damage like that, it's the equivalent of one auto. Look at how much damage it does. It does like fucking nothing. So whenever you ult like that, you're making it a lot more dangerous for you during the rest of this fight. So what if Nautilus still had his ult? I know he doesn't right now, but he still has his hook. They have things that can get on you, and now you're dead. If you had your ult over here, whenever they were chasing you, you could have rooted them all and done shitload of damage. Never use your ult for damage like this. Never, never, never. So, looking over here, your map is completely dark. You don't have Sightstone yet, but we do have three trinkets. Cho'Gath, it's fine that he's not down here. So, let's talk about setup and stuff, right? This whole thing happens over the course of like a minute. Every play happens like because of what was set up previously. Xayah's down here clearing this wave. So you know the Caitlyn's not here right now, and you know the Caitlyn's going to have to be here. Now, if you look at this inventory, right, Xayah has 2 wards, your Janna has 1, right? So Janna, ward this while you're walking away. Ward these bushes. Because that way, this play that happens in 15 to 30 seconds, you guys can respond to it better. Xayah, keep pushing this up, but ward this bush. That way you can see them coming down to you. And judging by where they are, they're not going to be able to respond to you immediately, so you're able to get this wave out. You don't drop your ward. That was the exact time you needed to drop your ward. You walk back up here to your team, but you still have no vision set up. And you drop a ward here. And they clear that out because they saw you place it. And this is exactly what I was talking about. You have nothing set up over here. And then you'd even drop a pink ward in there to try and get vision when Janna should have just dropped a ward in there earlier. And this ward that Janna drops, the Xayah should have dropped earlier. So this entire thing, this setup that you guys did, was really poor for this objective. And you had the chance over here and you had the chance over here to get the exact same vision that you have, but to make it so that way you were able to set up for a better fight. Because you walk into this blind. Well, I guess you used the Twisted Fate ult. Twisted Fate, you burst the Rammus. Because you bursted the Rammus, you have no cooldowns, and these guys are just going to chase you down. So if you want to look at where you should have kited to, right? Let's look. Because the safest thing is not always to walk back to tower. At the start of this fight, look at the positioning we have here. Look at this positioning. So Xayah, you shouldn't have been down here on this wave. You should have been walking up sooner. But you couldn't because we had no vision because you didn't set it up sooner. Now you nervous... Or maybe you just didn't think they were doing it? Okay. So as the Twisted Fate, you've already gotten this close, and you blow up the Rammus, right? You need to be walking around the outside. You're not kiting at all. You're not kiting at all because you know the LeBlanc's on this side. You know the LeBlanc's over here, and they just use their ultimate, you know, their CC, their crowd control. They use everything on the Cho'Gath. And then you're kiting away. And you're kiting to your death. There's no way you should get out of that. You should not have gotten out of that. That was really stupid of them. Well played, though. You use your ult for damage again. And you get lucky. Okay, that follow-through was... So here, right? What are you supposed to do? Trundle, you walked bottom to push this. That's exactly what you want to do. They have no Gangplank ult, and these guys are all mid. The Rammus had to recall. And this wave is also going to heal you because you're fucking Trundle. You don't want to be over here. It's good for you to not be here. This play that you guys get onto the Caitlyn is excellent, but what happens slightly after it is not good. So now you see you use your ult again for no reason. And now you take that damage and you're not in a position to respond to it. You see that auto and Q he got off onto you? You essentially have a spell shield whenever you ult that would prevent that from happening. You could have also lined it up better. And then Cho'Gath, you just got to leave that. But As Janna, I would have been walking down this way. Actually, no, I think I would have done the same thing. I think I would have done the same thing. Yeah, I would have. I would have definitely done the same thing. But yeah, this fight you guys did not set up for well at all. Twisted Fate, your positioning this fight was awful. Um, you weren't kiting around at all. You were standing right next to the LeBlanc, and there was no way you should have lived that. Um, the Trundle and the Cho'Gath, you guys both played this pretty excellently. I wasn't really paying too much attention to the Xayah or Janna during this fight, but Janna, you did a great job over here, and Xayah, you again ulted for no reason. You really got to work on that ult. It's a good time to clear that out because you know everyone was top lane. That was good. It was a little bit weirdly played, but it was good. And pushing this is good. I would even go for another one. All right. Since you're having everyone respond to this, he's still going to get this tower. So if you were trying to save this tower and prevent them from pushing, you're not thinking this through clearly. You could have stopped him from pushing with just Cho'Gath. You could have stopped him from pushing with just Twisted Fate. But you would have only stopped him from pushing your inhib, which is necessary. Don't get me wrong. This you did need to do. But to send everyone back and reset completely whenever you were just trading an outer for an inner is troublesome. Um, let's look back. So if you look back here, the Rammus has to recall, and the Caitlyn's not there because she was, had to recall too. So immediately, if you guys dove this, you would be able to kill her probably, or you would have been able to force her off this tower and still set up your numbers advantage. And because they had no one else on this side of the map, just one person would have been enough. Okay, so at this stage of the game, you need to be swapping focuses. You have a longer lane down here, just took the outer, and you need to be playing towards Baron now. Especially with your lack of game control, like so far, they've gotten 2 Infernal Drakes under your nose, and you haven't done anything for it. So you want to be trading lanes. I would probably stick the Cho'Gath middle in this case, so the Twisted Fate could clear bottom or clear these waves pretty easily. And I would put the Xayah and the Janna top lane. And I would have Trundle be hovering around bottom to make sure that, if they did go in on the Twisted Fate, you could go in and probably pull a kill out of it. So the idea behind that is your Xayah and your Janna are going to be able to force this tower. They're going to be able to put a lot of pressure over here, which is probably going to draw the Rammus. But I do think that you guys are strong enough at this point to be able to handle 2v2. I think you'd be able to get out, and I think that you would be able to do enough. Because, I've seen your damage so far, and you should be able to kite out the Gangplank. Mid lane, your Cho'Gath could also go bottom, but I think that if Cho'Gath was bottom, he would just get poked out. He could go, yeah, Cho'Gath could go bottom or mid. The Twisted Fate and the Cho'Gath could go either of these. But your idea here is you need to be starting to focus other towers, and you need to be putting your pressure on the other side of the map. Because Baron's up. So into a mini lesson, the reason bottom lane has 2 people in it is from the start of the game, whenever Dragon was a thing, it was to make sure you had more control over Dragon. That's why you did it, to have more control over the objective nearby. Now later on, they started to change the game a little bit, so dragons became slightly less valuable, and then the teams were rotating lanes a lot. So what they did is they made top tower stronger early, so that way you wouldn't be able to take this turret as quickly as you take bottom turrets. So you'd want to defend bottom turrets early game and try and take them. But it's 20 minutes, so that buff is gone. So there is no reason, strategy-wise, to be bottom. You can force top lane towers and you can force mid lane towers. Now, if you're using the same logic, the objective that matters now is Baron. So earlier, you would be putting 2 people bottom to control Dragon. Now you'd be putting 2 people top to control Baron. The idea also that you could be doing is if you get this wave pushing, then you can respond with everyone to the other side of the map or middle. So you could send 2 people bottom still, but you would need the Trundle as well down here in order to force, like, if they ganked you, which they probably would as you're pushing this up, or to be able to, they have no tower, to punish them for being this far up. Those are the reasons you would want to be doing that. To punish them for being too far up, to have 3 people down here, or to set up for a counter gank over here where you'd again punish them for having this long lane. Otherwise, you're not getting objectives. This tower matters. This tower matters. Baron matters. This tower matters. You know what does not matter? This fucking score here. Kills. And if you're just focusing on kills, right, you're even right now. Okay. And I don't think the dragon matters much either. But you know what matters here? This goal differentiation. And this goal differentiation, if you give up towers, or if you give up too many minion leads, I guess. I don't know if that's where you lost this. Holy shit, Rammus is out farming you a lot. That's probably where this entire goal defect is. Yeah, that definitely is. Okay. So, the strategy here is to either punish them for being too far up, or rotate for towers. The only reason to be punishing them for being this far up is so you could force this tower later. But they have a lot of pressure on the top side of the map with you not having anything over here, and you have no vision on Baron. So I would be trying to set up towards the top side. This, just a side note, this is also exactly what I was talking about that you guys wanted to do. Set up a push over here so you could respawn middle. So since you guys ended up doing this, whether or not it was intentional, that is ideal. The Rammus is really focusing top, which is something that kind of is expected at this point. And if you had 2 people up here, or even 3, maybe it would have been a different story. But now they have priority to push this, and you're picking this fight with a numbers advantage. This is a really good play, and you have to execute it quickly because you need to respond to this. Where was your route? Right there? So Zaya, that was a pretty good job to force that fight. It was a bit unfortunate that you got hooked. If you had ulted there, it might have been a little bit different, but I don't know how different. You're going to get ganked soon. You cannot stay for this. Yep. So you're not watching their rotations. If they weren't staying on this wave, they were coming for you. After you got the tower, you had to leave. So now you're going to be trading that tower for your own tower and maybe Baron. Yeah, that's exactly what they wanted to do. And they got another Infernal Drake up that they could potentially take because you guys aren't in position to do anything. And even though I knew it was going to happen because of this, we didn't see them on this wave. If you want to look over here, you got 2 trinkets on Zaya. A trinket on Trundle and a trinket on Cho'Gath, who is dead, but to be fair, um, means you probably could have warded for the Rammus. Also, side note, whenever you're playing against a Rammus, you really need to respect his long-range ganks. You in this point have nothing to defend you this entire length. So if you're going to be up this far, you need a ward way down here, and you probably need a ward at their blue. Those are what you need. The reason is because if he's going to be coming up through this part of your jungle, right, you at this point still have this tower, so you'll see him on your ward over here. If he's coming through river, you'll see him on here. If he's coming through this area, their blue side jungle, you will see him on here. Two wards, right? That's all you need, 2 wards. You know what you have? You have 4 wards between your team. Your team is not setting up for anything. You had no setup on Dragon at any point. You had no setup on Baron at any point. Well, I guess you kind of did, but they cleared it out. It's just, if you ward Baron, the only reason you would ward it like the way it was warded for your team, let's go back. This vision is only to help you with steals. This does not set up for anything. It does not set up for anything. Because how are you going to know what they're going to do? You don't see them anywhere in their blue side jungle. This ward is only for stealing. It's not catching anyone rotating. It's not catching anyone in their jungle. It's only for stealing Baron. This ward over here is good. I do like this, but your map is so dark. Do you see all of this darkness? Do you see all of this darkness? I know one of the things that one of you likes doing is pulling up vision score. Now, vision score, if your map looks like this, should be 0. And, like, I know Ardent Rushing is a thing. It's slightly less valuable right now, but you even have 3 wards on your Sightstone thing. So at this point, you have wards. If you have wards, and you see all of this, you're doing something wrong. Now hang on. So look at this setup, right? Now this is for their Infernal Drake control. This is exactly what they were probably thinking they were going to get later on. They wanted to set up for this Infernal Drake that was coming because that was one of their main focuses. That's why they have these wards where they have them. They can see almost every entrance, and then this one's a little bit iffy. I would probably put that further out. But just by comparison, your team has like nothing. And then their earlier setup, positioning. So sometimes you just need to let things go, especially dragons. Dragons you need to let go. I know that it's the 3rd Infernal Drake, and I know that that's bad, but you know what else is bad? Dying, them getting Infernal Drake, and them getting the tower. Because that's what's going to happen now. They're going to get this tower. And now you think what could have happened here. Probably best case scenario, you stole the dragon, probably one of you died, you got a kill, and then they pushed this tower. Well, you know what wins games? These towers. So in a lecture here, these dragons give you the possibility of getting an objective later on. The whole purpose of Infernal Drakes is to help you win fights, right? If you win a fight, what's the purpose of winning a fight? So you can get the objectives afterwards. Because you win the game by taking the Nexus. Now, what about Ocean Drake? Ocean Dragon gives you mana sustain and health sustain, so you can stay out longer, so that way you can force them to recall, and that way they're still alive, but you're able to take objectives. Earth Drake gives you increased damage to things like Baron and towers. Well, you know what? That gives you the possibility of taking a tower later. It gives you the possibility of taking Baron, which gives you the possibility of taking a tower later. Air Drake gives you rotations. I think Air Dragon is the best dragon. Air Dragon lets you, so if you have set up proper vision to know where they're going to rotate, and gives you more time to respond to it because you are getting there faster. Air Dragon lets you rotate between a top wave that you were just pushing out and middle where you're going to have a man advantage. If you want to equate dragons to gold, then let's think about this. Infernal Dragon is the equivalent of a percentage boost in your gold. It gives you, let's say, an 8% boost. Something like that. Not necessarily that much, maybe more, maybe less, but whatever, 8%. Now, you know what's more than 8%? 20%. 20% of your gold comes from when you have a man advantage, because one of these people not being here is 20% of your team's gold. 20%. So this dragon over here, Infernal Dragon, if you want to even consider it the ridiculousness of for some reason that is worth like 20% of your gold, you're still going to have more abilities on them because you'll have more people, which means you'll have more fight control and the ability to win that fight at equal gold. Air Dragon sets up the best fights, but it still only gives you the potential to win fights, which gives you the potential to take objectives. Dragons do not matter. Dragons are only something you should take if it's a freebie or if you're using it to force a fight. Elder Dragon is different, but that's for the majority of dragons. So you guys have a ward out here now. This is actually a pretty good ward. I'm very happy with this one. A ward over here. This is a good ward. And a ward over here. This is all pretty good. It doesn't give you a whole lot of control, but it's more control than you've had for a while. That's a good ward. But whenever you see two people, you're walking up to it still. That's not a good position. That's not a good spot to be in. This looks pretty good. Yeah. That was probably the best fight you guys have had this game. And you want to know why? I'll show you real quickly why. Now, if you want to think about what I just said earlier, 20% of their gold, that is the fight where you have an advantage. Now, you did not know that when you went into this fight because you did not have proper vision on the gangplank, but it started off really bad with the Janna getting caught. It played out really well with the Trundle flank and the Cho'Gath knockup. But the real reason you won the fight is right here. He wasn't there. So now extend that logic. The reason you won this fight is because someone wasn't there. To how can you create opportunities like that? You create opportunities like that by having wave control on the sides, which you don't have right now. Those are both pushing into you. And by having vision to catch them, the enemy team, when they're rotating between these things. That is how you set up for fights like this. This is luck. But you know you are able to set up to get these fights, so it is not luck. The way you do that is by wave control and vision. Wave control and vision. Very good play to walk off of that. Very good pressure. Risky, yeah. So at that point, I would be responding to your side lane instead of pressuring this turret. There wasn't a very easy way for you to get that turret with what was up and what your health bars were. Um, I would also be using it to put vision down because once again, let's look at this. If you see what I'm pointing at, these things are trinkets that are unused and sightstone wards that are unused. And remember how I was giving you that compliment earlier about having a pink ward? Well, only one person on your team right now has a pink ward. And I see inventory slots where you guys could easily put a pink ward in there. You have no vision control. No vision control on this map. And that's how come you're having these probably you're feeling like this abysmal game right now. It's there's the chance of you guys winning is falling through the cracks. And the reason is because you have no chance to set up smart fights. If you're able to get picks, which your team has plenty of pick potential, Cho'Gath, ult, Xayah, snare, Cho'Gath, silence and knock up, Twisted Fate, stuns. You have plenty of opportunities to get these picks whenever they're walking through your jungle. But you don't know where they are. This is dark. And they have no reason to be splitting up their team because all of these waves are, well, I guess this one's now going to push out because the turret bounced it. But this wave is going against you guys. So because this wave is going against you guys, they have every reason to just group and siege. And you know what? Whenever they're together, you see this gold advantage, they'll straight up just win fights. Because, 8% gold added onto this because of what I was just saying about the Infernal Drake. By the way, I'm pulling that number out my ass. It doesn't actually have that 8% value. I'm making that up. But now they're going to get this and be able to rotate. Hang on. Did someone just clear that? Yeah. Cho'Gath, this is what you wanted to do here. Even though you were going to lose that tower, you were going to lose it regardless. That's what you wanted to do. Good job. I would have just recalled, though. There was no reason for you to walk up like that. Okay. When your inhib is down, you want to keep the wave pushed up about this far. That's going to give you a little bit of time to respond to things. So you want this wave pushed up this far, and you need someone to go top right now because they're going to rotate bottom. If you have someone go up top, you can then set up for a potential turret top lane so you get a trade. The rest of your team is going to be staying middle, and you're going to give up that tower bottom because you have no control over this side of the map right now, no vision at all. And now you're grouping. But you see, you're grouping, they don't have to respond to this yet, and this is going to push into you guys, so it's just a matter of time before this is taken. And you see, they didn't even stay for that, because the wave was down here. So you have all of this time that you guys set up for this for no reason. And now, you see, they're down here to just take it anyways. Actually. So I just want to say, Cho'Gath, you are on a great champion right now. You have landed so many great ruptures that has definitely set up this fight for your team. Xayah, I would try and make sure next game you play against Aramis, you have a last whisper at this point. You have right now a extra BF sword for some reason. I know you're going for probably your Infinity Edge right now, but you probably could have killed Aramis in that time. He's just going to be in your face every fight. That's what's happened so far. And he's got a lot of armor already. Um, Twisted Fate. I think that you're just on a champion you're not super comfortable with. Uh, you are back here right now, I guess. Yeah. Let's see what you do. Yeah, I would have held on to your flash a little bit longer because you ended up getting into a dangerous spot before you had picked your card. That was a good stun though. And you want to know and look at the reason you won that fight again? Because this guy wasn't there. You know why he probably wasn't there? He probably was responding to that wave top lane that the Cho'Gath set up earlier. Yeah, yeah, you see this? This is how you set up your smart fights. Excellent, 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 excellent. Whenever the Cho'Gath gave up this tower mid lane, he set up this fight later on, which you guys won. Janna overstayed. All right, good stuff. That is what I would have ended up doing there. Reason being, you're not going to be able to get anything after you take those kills, so at least you're getting your team some money. After that, I would be trying to set up this wave to slow push. I don't know how familiar you are with slow pushing, but what is happening right now is pretty good for slow pushing. You are going to probably want to take another wave. That way you can be setting up for Baron. So far, every time you have won a fight, it's because you have not had Gangplank there on the enemy team. Setting up a wave like this is what you want to do. Now you want to be looking over to that Baron. People are down here right now. And if the Nautilus is down there, someone else is probably going to come down there soon. Again, this is a worthless ward. It doesn't show you enough. See how the Janna got caught out there? That's because these wards do not tell you anything. Zaya, still got two. Zaya, use your trinkets. Upgrade to blue at this point also, and make sure those wards at least stay down. The Nautilus was able to clear out that. So now it's going to be pushing into you guys. You need to be hovering around middle, unfortunately, because the wave is going to be pushing into you. Twisted Fate, that's what you will kind of be doing because you have your ult to get back to the fight. This is a good idea. Okay. Um, good job. They're just going to get the inhib and then another Baron, probably. I would get the Baron. Yep. And now you guys got a lot of random vision. But let's talk about this vision. What does this tell you? This ward here is the equivalent of warding your spawn because they're not going to pass this way. If they do pass this way, they're going to be in the lane, or they're going to pass this ward, or they're going to pass this ward, or they're going to pass this ward, or they're going to pass this ward. This ward down here is the same story. It does not tell you anything. As I still have to use your trinkets. Yeah, so if you're looking again at the vision score, this is worthless. 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 Well, actually, this one's got value because you can see him going in here. But you know they're going to be pushing this lane. Twisted Fate is off on this side. You do not need to be here right now. I know you're creating pressure, but that's so far away. You're not going to be creating pressure for like another 2 minutes by pushing this wave out, and by then they're going to have won the game. Janna, you got to work on your positioning. That's probably the third time you have walked back into your death, and at least one time you were separated from your team overstaying. Okay, so that's pretty much your game. Uh, so things to take away. You Twisted Fate. When you create pressure, let me just go down from top to bottom. Typical team comp. Cho'Gath, you actually have very good wave control, but you do not respect how quickly certain junglers can gank you. You also are pretty good at knowing where to be, because you came down for that one dragon fight, which was a pretty good fight for you guys, and that was excellent. You also have great rupture, like the knockups that you have landed were amazing, and your positioning is in team fights and stuff is pretty good. You made only one mistake, which was walking down this way and taking a free death for no reason. That was your major misplay team fight wise. But your biggest issue is you do not have proper vision to be doing what you want to do. And that is partially your fault, of course, because you do not have a pink ward for most of this game in a place that would catch the Rammus. It is also partially your team's fault, but that's not a huge deal. Earlier, you did not respect your invading Trundle, and you were like sitting on this wave. The Gangplank was the first one to come down. That is not good. You need to make sure you are the first one to come down whenever you're in a position to, and you were in a position to. So for vision, how do you set up for doing what you wanted to do? Get these waves going out and keep control over here. As I said earlier, a pink ward here and a blue or your normal ward over here. That's going to catch 9 out of 10 ganks. The 10th gank is going to be the lane gank. But if they're coming through lane, odds are they're going to do one of these camps first. So if you ward on this side, you can see the Krugs, you can see the blue buff, you can see him coming from his wolves. You can see him coming this way from his wolves, you can see him coming this way from his wolves. You can see him cutting through your jungle. You can see everything you need to keep your wave control up here and to make sure that you don't feed the Gangplank. Once you had lost these towers, it was extra dangerous because they could come up through any point of this jungle and gank you. I don't think they did, but they could have. And again, you did not respect that. The proper way to respond to that is vision control and manipulating waves whenever you are not there. And you saw how you pushed this out without Gangplank here, so he would respond to it later, and meanwhile, you are with your team. So you know how to do that. You just need to make sure that you are not doing those dangerous pushes whenever you were. And you can just make it smart by setting up that vision. Alright, so now we're going to look at the jungler. Trundle, you wait around a lot. Whenever you are waiting for your blue buff to spawn, waiting to set up for a gank here, and you are also waiting in these bushes over here. You do not do that. You always look for something to use your time, and if you cannot finish the Scuttle Crab because they're fighting bottom, that is fine. Skip the stupid Scuttle Crab and start walking bottom to the fight, and you know what? You're already closer. You also do not predict enemy pathing. Whenever you were over here, or Rammus was over here, and it was such an obvious gank, you were still sitting down here. Until finally you show up mid, but it's too late. You need to be predicting enemy pathing, and this is an excellent ward. Whoever did this on this team, great job. Whenever you had the vision on the Rammus over here, that is exactly the type of vision that gives you knowledge to set up plays. But then you have to set up the play. It's kind of like you just read that, stocks are going to go up, and you decided to sell all of your stock that you have in that stock because for some reason you didn't trust the paper. Okay, well then he just blue flash for no reason, and that was awful. You could have respected that and been here. Your invade early was actually a really good idea, but I would have been different with my approach to the invade. I would have warded out here instead of the blue buff, because there's a chance you would have been able to catch him doing his Gromp or been able to catch him doing his blue buff. But instead you warded the blue over the wall, which he probably would have pulled into this bush anyways. So that was a bad ward. And because of that, you did not see him coming immediately. Your team would have had less time to respond to this. Also, if you're invading, make sure in comms you are telling your team you are invading, so they do know to respond to it. Mid game, you had a great flank over here. That was amazing positioning by you to go in for this. Couple of times, like whenever you went down to push that bot wave after the dragon fight, that was also a very good idea. You need to be doing more things like that. Your warding this game was okay. I saw you put down a pink ward for your top laner. I think that was you at least. That is a great, great, great strategy. Whenever you ward for your laners, that is one of the ways a jungler can win a lane, by not doing anything. However, later on I told you that the Cho'Gath could have safely split push if he had a ward over here. Well, then get a ward over there. That's something you can do. Your job is to be on this side of the map eventually, right? And you weren't here ever. Like, well, I guess you were here a couple of times, but like you didn't do that. And this vision in this bush would have also done your job to set up for a Baron control. Yeah. Okay. And in your win conditions, you did a great job actually hovering around bottom and mid, like what I was kind of thinking you should do. You waited a long time over here, and you didn't scout at all. I think I would have been trying to get a little more vision on where the Rammus would have been, so that way you could make your proactive plays to what he was going to be doing, set up for something. Um, but considering you, yeah, it's not an excuse. Even though you had vision and you didn't set up for this, you need to be respecting and responding to what the enemy jungler is doing. Uh, the bottom lane gank that you kind of just waited for, your laners don't have a whole lot of setup, I admit, but Xayah does have setup, and the Janna can bait. Just tell them in comms, I'm trying to gank. See if you get something. Because they did not have it warded over here. They had it warded here. You could have gone over the edge, and if they were fighting already, it'd have been too late for them. They would have been dead. And I don't think you went mid at all. Like, you might have gone mid once, but it didn't do too much. And if they're going to ward this, you know how you can easily respond to them warding this? You got a pink ward and you got a red trinket. Two ways to respond to this. Sweep it, and then they have to fucking respect that you could still be there. So if you don't even gank, you're winning this lane. It's exactly the same as I was just saying top lane. It's a way to win a lane without doing anything. Okay, mid lane. Whenever you push out that lane early and you do nothing, you are essentially AFK. Because you're not doing anything with that time. And if they are still able to respond before you, that gives you an even better example of why it is the equivalent of you being AFK. You had every right to be over here first. And you weren't. Your positioning on fights is also very, very disrespectful. They have a lot of crowd control that they could have put on you. That's not only this fight, but also over here. You need to be looking for a way to do that, potentially, but get to priority targets, right? Over here, you for some reason hit the Rammus. Bad idea. But over here, at least you got the Caitlyn. So, at least this fight was okay. But there was no reason for that. Like, positioning. You were right next to the Rammus. Watch your positioning. Or play like Galio. Because he's part tank. At least that way you can get in. So next, whenever the LeBlanc was bottom like this, and I told you that it was partially your fault that you lost the first dragon, well, that was because your laners could not recall. You left your bottom lane here with no health for a long time. And you thought that you were controlling their jungler. Well, their jungler still went and got dragon. So you were not controlling their jungler. Bottom lane. There was no reason for you guys to be pushed in that entire lane. If you were trying to set up for ganks, well, you saw how that played out. You did not have the setup to set up for that gank, apparently, because you never really got off those successful early ganks. Now, later on you did, but early you did not. So then, in that case, early, play more aggressive. You have 2 ranged champions against 1 ranged champion. You should win that lane. You should win that lane. And that's so now into 2 separations. Janna, your vision control this game is very meh. A lot of the vision that you set down early is okay, but mid game it's not. It's not okay. From this ward over here that I told you you should have dropped, if you know that there is something you are going to contest and there is darkness there, then you need to drop a ward. Xayah, you do not use your ward at all. At all. Like, you need to. This play where you ward dragon or something like right here, that was unnecessary use of your ward. Then the Janna has to ward this, and then you don't have a ward for over here, etc., etc., etc. You need to use those wards. Janna, your positioning, I did mention that a little bit. You really got to watch that. You should be behind your carries and peeling for your carries, but for some reason, the Caitlyn's able to auto-attack you a lot. She kills you a lot. Probably like 3 or 4 times. And I told you there was no reason you should die this game. The Xayah, you use your ult for damage. That is not a good idea. You also do not play aggressively whenever your laner... Janna can shield you. This lane is essentially your job to play aggro. Janna does need to play up with you, but it is your job to play aggro. And you only played aggro after the Janna got hooked. And that's not good. If you're going to be playing that passively, then start like Relic Shield, because you're not playing to win lane with your Dorn's Blade. Also, with the way you're using your ult, you essentially are playing... you're not playing Xayah. Might as well play Varus, because that way, you know, you have other abilities. Your ultimate as Varus sets up the route that Xayah's feathers do, and at least that way, the rest of your kit is more useful, right? You're not using her ult for what her ult is intended to do. All around, you guys need to buy more pink wards early. You need to set up for plays more proactively. You had no control on Dragon this entire game, and no control on Baron. Whenever you ward like your team was doing, that is only for steals and tells you nothing about the state of the game. Very bad. You need to be warding out further, so that way you can at least see them starting Baron and setting up for Baron, or baiting Baron. Your wave control, the only person who had wave control this game was the Cho'Gath. Twisted Fate, it seems like every time you pushed out a wave, you just waited, which is not good. And for bottom lane, you guys were always shoved in. And I said if you knew how to do a slow push, well, the Nautilus was able to respond to that because it was a fast push, and that's why you had the man disadvantage over here and the wave was coming into you. All right, I think that's all I got.